Want to learn how to get into real estate, fix and flip, wholesaling with money and without money? Tune in to this episode. Welcome to the Newbie Real Estate Investors Podcast. Today, we're going to go over how to do a fix and flip, how to do a wholesale deal, how it is to be a loan officer. How do you get into wholesale? Let's say you had no money and you wanted to get into wholesaling. How would I go about doing that?
The first thing you guys got to do is find a motivated seller. There's a whole bunch of ways to do this for free. Go on Zillow. Zillow has all this information there for you. You got people who are in the process of foreclosure, whose house are about to go to sheriff's sale, whose house are about to go to auction, and you could literally skip trace them on True People Search. We did a whole episode about this. Refer back to that one. You can also go on PropWire. It's totally free to use. Skip tracing isn't free there though. You can pull expired listings, absentee owners, probates, tired landlords. You can also drive for dollars, literally. Drive around your neighborhood, find the shittiest looking houses. Anything that's totally run down, knock on their door, skip trace them later, give them a call, leave them a note. That's a way to get a hold of the seller. You can also find people who are going through divorces, high equity lists. There's a whole bunch of ways to do this for free. None of this costs money. Propwire.com. 100% free. Nice. You're going to start calling all of these guys. All of these guys have a point of motivation, right? So foreclosure, go on auction, expired listings. They already listed with a realtor. They already know they're trying to sell. Absentee, especially bonus points if they're out of state because now they're not here. They probably don't want to deal with it. Probate, someone died, tired landlords, just been owning it for too long. And driving for dollars, obviously, you already know. Something's wrong with it. Like tall grass, all this stuff. Gonna start calling all them up. Then you're gonna get a seller who's gonna wanna talk to you. They're gonna wanna sell. And this one, you're gonna do that classic wholesale formula because now you gotta give them an offer. How do you come up with your offer? You're gonna start doing comps. You don't need any MLS. You don't need anything crazy. Literally, we're gonna go on Zillow. Again, 100% free. You're gonna look for sold. You wanna do your comps depending on your market. If you're in a very high activity market, you're gonna wanna do last 6 months. If you're in a more rural market, you might have to extend this for 12, but realistically, you should be doing this for 6. Within half a mile, again, if you're in a more remote market, you might have to extend this. Joe and I have had this conversation even yesterday. And then you're going to start looking for similar houses. Let's say you got a 3-bed, 2-bath house, 1,500 square feet. You don't want to go below 1,250 square feet, and you don't want to go above 1,750. You're going to put in 3-bed, 2-bath houses, and you're going to find everything that's sold. You want to look for a house that looks as close to your house as humanly possible. That's how you're finding that after repair value. But make sure you're comparing apples to apples, not apples to oranges, so check the condition of the houses that sold. Then you're going to do a 30% discount, so times that by 0.7. You're going to also have to account for repairs. I believe the classic ones are like $10 to $15 a square foot is what they typically teach for most markets. For light repairs, so like paint, basic cleanup. Medium repairs, I was taught like 20 to 25, and then 30 to 35 for heavy. Medium is like new kitchen, new bath, and then heavy is like hot water heaters and these things that might be going wrong. Next, you got to figure out how much you're trying to make. If you're trying to make $10,000, that's what you're going to do. Let's say your ARV is $300,000 minus that 30% discount, you're at $210. Let's say your house needs $30,000 of repairs. Now you're at $180 and you want to make $10,000. The maximum you could offer the seller is $170. Well, you're going to have to negotiate a little bit here. Don't start with that offer, but we could do another episode on how to negotiate with sellers. You're going to put them under contract. So you're going to make a purchase and sale agreement. Basically, it's saying seller Joey Chan is selling me his house at $170. I'm buying it. But make sure it says and or assigns or that this contract is assignable somewhere in there. Because if that does not have it, you can't assign the contract. And what we're doing is assigning it. You're going to send it over to the title company next. If you are in an attorney state, New York, Georgia are attorney states, you're going to send it over to an attorney who does real estate. Check that with your state. Once it's over in title, you're going to send them your earnest money. This is like a part where you do need a little bit of money, but realistically, earnest money is just consideration, so it could really be $1. You might have a hard time convincing a seller that your earnest money is $1, but most of them don't really look at it, so put like $100 in there, you'll be fine.
Yeah, couldn't you get a gator to fund it?
We could also get a gator. We did an episode with Daniel Wang, who is actually the gator guy for the Northeast, but he'll gator lend for anywhere. So let's say you have a slam dunk deal and you need $10,000 earnest money. Check out the episode with Daniel Wang. You'll get your deal funded, I promise you. Once it's in title, send that earnest money. You got to find a buyer. If you got a good deal, you got yourself a buyer. pretty much instantly. This is why you definitely do want to do this in a market that has more activity, because let's say it's a population of 1,000 people for surrounding area of 30 miles, you're going to have a very hard time finding someone to buy that. You're going to have a very easy time finding a seller. You're going to have a very hard time finding a buyer because they can't really do anything with it. You do definitely want to be in a higher population area, but you probably also don't want to be the most competitive. I don't know. Some people say competition's great. It really just depends, but don't make it too remote. You're going to find your buyer. You're going to offer them the contract at, you want it to make 10 grand, so 180. So now let's say I'm buying the house from Joey. I'm going to sell to Joe at 180, and I'm going to send him my assignment of contract. So I have the A to B contract with Joey, and now I'm going to send Joe the B to C. He's going to sign it. He's going to wire his EMD over to the title company or attorney, depends on your state. So let's say my earnest money with Joey is 1 grand. I usually put this in my contracts. And then I'm going to sell it to Joe. You definitely want them to at least cover your earnest money, so at least like 2 grand, whatever you make the difference is that earnest money. Essentially, if he backs out for no reason, you get to keep that. So you still make something. But it just makes sure that he's a serious buyer. I'm going to send it to Joe at 180 with a $2,000 earnest money, and he's going to wire that over to the title company. When you're setting up your purchase and sale agreements, though, please be mindful of the inspection period. A lot of the wholesale contracts have the entirety of it being the due diligence period, when you could back out for any reason. You can also actually reach out to realtors as well. I did forget to mention, it's totally a free way to do this on Zillow. Just make them lowball offers. A lot of those on-market transactions, your due diligence is only 10 days when you can back out for any reason. So if you do that, just please be mindful of that and make sure it's in writing, because if it's not in writing, you're gonna have to forego your earnest money deposit. Then all that stuff gets sent over to title, and assuming that everything else goes well, you get to close on your property and you get a check or a wire into your account. You don't need an LLC, you don't need a company, you don't need a team. Team makes it a little bit easier, but it's 100% free. And you just made 10 grand by doing some calls.
After you get that wholesale, let's say instead of Joe buying it, I buy it. The next step would be to, let's say I'm a home investor and I'm gonna fix and flip it, right? So I'll talk about the steps that go into a fix and flip. Let's say I do purchase it either from, let's say, a wholesaler, such as like Vlada, or a realtor. You know, you purchase it either off market or on market. Then once I acquire that property, but before I even acquire that property, what do I have to do? I have to do some due diligence, right? So the due diligence, basically what I always recommend you do are 3 things. Do an oil tank sweep. Number 1, get a home inspection for sure, and then do a sewer scope. So I've had a couple of instances where we didn't do a sewer scope and the buyers asked us to replace the entire sewer line. And all it needed was a simple like water jetting to clear the lines, okay? So that's a big cost if you've got to replace your whole sewer line, right? That's a good like $20,000 to $30,000 thing. You want to avoid that kind of stuff. And then number 2, once you do those due diligence, you get to find out what kind of things are wrong with the property. And then as soon as you know what is wrong with the property, then you got to run your numbers. Once you run your numbers, you're going to, well, even before you get to run your numbers, you're going to invite some contractors to come in, give you those numbers, right? Unless you're a little more experienced and you know and you understand construction, then you don't need to necessarily invite those contractors to come. And I would also highly recommend you pay a contractor to come in and give you a quote, because the guys that are coming in to give you free quotes, they're not that anxious to give you a free quote unless they have not done these type of projects. So those guys that are a little more desperate, they'll want to come in and give you a quote, and then a lot of times they're gonna lowball it. This is when you get in trouble. You'd want somebody to come in, give you a more thorough quote. And why would they give you a more thorough quote? Because you're paying for the quote, okay? So you want somebody like that. And then once you do that, once you have your numbers together, how are you gonna fund the project, right? So there's a couple of different ways to fund the project. The first way is to fund it yourself through your savings, or if you have some kind of like self-directed IRA. Actually, self-directed is gonna come from someone else, like a private lender or something like that. Then you're gonna get either a hard money loan, or let's say a DSCR loan, or even let's say a 203K loan if you intend to actually live in the property. Once you do that, and then your contractor comes back to you and they give you sort of a scope of work, or you help create that scope of work, now you know what kind of work needs to be done. Once you go through all these phases, then you're actually gonna purchase the property, right? And that's the beginning. That's where the fun actually starts. So once you purchase the property, then you have to figure out, hey, am I gonna get permits to do all this work, or is it something where I can do it without work? Even before you actually purchase, you're gonna wanna talk to an architect. If you're making a lot of structural changes and things like that. If you're not making a lot of changes and it's all more cosmetic, then you don't really need an architect. Once you do that, you're gonna wanna line up your contractor, right? Because the contractor is the person that's gonna make or break your deal. Once you get a good contractor in there, you're gonna have them execute the job, and then you're gonna figure out a draw schedule for that contractor. So always make sure you're going to pay them on big milestones. Let's say after an inspection passes, then you pay them. Or after, let's say, your cabinets are installed, or after all the drywall is put up. So always go with the big milestones, and then be aware of when those milestones are going to occur, so that it's fair to you and fair to them. Once you set up those payment terms and things like that, you want to find out if they're going to offer any type of warranty. If something goes wrong, are they going to come back and fix it, depending on what's wrong, right? Once you complete that project, you're going to clean up the project. Then the next step is to start talking to a realtor, or if you are a realtor, you can go ahead and start the listing process. What I usually like to do is I usually hire a staging crew. So they'll come in, they'll put furniture, different types of tables and things like that,
Couches
pictures, couches, yeah.
To make it look like it's livable.
Yep. Exactly. Because buyers have very low vision, right? So they can't picture the space. If you give them the vision, it'll make it a lot easier to sell. I did this a lot, especially during COVID, where we just purchased the house. We barely fixed it up. It was not that great renovation wise, but we did stage it, and the staging made the house way better looking than it is. And we were able to sell it for top dollar even at that point. Once you market it with the realtor, all you have to really do is wait for closing. And then, sell it. Once you get that wire, make sure you pay off your bills, and then on to the next property. That's how fix and flip is done. And I'm going to ask Joe.
How to finance.
Yeah. how do people get funded? Explain a little bit from a loan officer point of view.
I think this is one of the most trickiest parts of the deal, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because once you do the ARV and you know that you're buying the house for $200,000, but you're going to be able to fix this because you have an extensive knowledge of construction, that you're going to be able to sell this thing for $450, $500, right? That's easy, as long as you keep your costs low and everything else. The financing, I think, is one of the most important parts, and where the entire deal can just collapse. Financing, you can start with as little as 3.5% with an FHA loan, or even a conventional loan. You could put down at least 5%. One rule of thumb is never mention to a bank that you're buying an FHA loan to do an investment. Don't follow what you're hearing on social media. FHA is not an investment tool. It is a property that you're intending to live for 5, 10, 15 years, but they do give you the option to move out. Let's say you've outlived the house, your family size is growing. You can move out after a year, right? You're not breaking any rules after that period. But FHA is not an investment tool. Don't say that to the bank. You can start with as low as 3.5% down. So Joey's fixed up this property. It's ready to get sold. There's no encumbrances or any other creative financing that's attached to this. You can, again, FHA 3.5% down, closing costs about 3 to 4 rule of thumb. If you're looking, let's say Joey just wants to get rid of it. He started the deal, and his whole construction crew just, for whatever reason, just left the job site. You can pick up that property as long as he's had it for over 90 days, and you can do a 203K. This is one of my favorite loan options for 2024. With the lack of inventory in every market across the country, 203Ks are going to take off this year. It's just imagining what you can do with this actual loan. So Joey leaves the house down to the studs. You can pick up a home with a 203K loan, where it's like an FHA loan, it's the same thing, but the bank will give you the money to finish the repairs of the house. Again, down to the studs. No luxury items. They're not going to install pools. They're not going to install pickleball courts. They're not going to install tennis courts, right? Yeah. No spas, anything like that, but they will give you the money to actually finish off the entire house. That's for your basic entry level. And there's no additional cost to it. A lot of people think, oh, 2 or 3K, I have to put X amount of down, you have to put more down. There's really the only additional fee that I could see on a standard 2 or 3K would be having to pay for a HUD consultant, which run you about $800-900. Basically, that's going to be your project manager while you're going through the 203K loan. Now, if you're looking to be a little bit more creative, we have what we call non-QM loans. Non-QM loans are basically where you're putting down 20% and you're putting less documentation to acquire the property. These are what you're hearing online, your DSCR loans, hard money loans, bank statement loans, but the DSCR is the most popular. You're putting 20% down and you're actually going to acquire the property, not with your personal W-2s, income, work history. You're actually going to qualify with the projected income of the rentals. If you have a mortgage payment of $1,000 and the projected income of the rentals of a 2-unit is $1,100, you're most likely going to qualify with the bank. DSCR, again, it's the most popular product right now in the industry. You can also do hard money to pick up a property where it may not work with the bank for whatever reason. Again, you're looking to put 20-25% depending on the relationship you have with the bank. They're going to actually give you the money to buy the property, and they're going to, again, give you money to fund to fix the construction or complete the construction of the property. But that only lasts 12 months. I help you with the hard money, which I can do. And then after 12 months, the job is completed. Now we're going to figure out an exit strategy. Also, BRRRR. Everyone hears the term BRRRR, right? We buy, we repair, we rent, we refinance, right? And that's where I come in. I always call myself the third R in the BRRRR. And then we repeat. BRRRR is one of the best ways to actually pull equity out of a property. So basically, you're going to buy something for $100,000. You're going to put another $100,000. It's going to, and you know that because you've done your due diligence. You've connected with a realtor that you can sell that property for $400,000. The bank will give you up to 80% of the projected ARV on the property. So those are the best options right now, and some of the ways that you can actually make money while making money with other people's money, which is what I always recommend.
Awesome.
That's when we check out the episode with Daniel Wang where he literally told you how to use people's money for
absolutely
everything.
Yeah. Daniel was a great episode.
Yeah, he was.
So thank you guys for tuning in, and tune in next week for another episode.